Hello. Here in this last section, we're going to go through the actual verses of the Mandukya Upanishad. The Mandukya Upanishad is only 12 verses and is the shortest of all the Upanishads, of which there are said to have originally been thousands, and now there's about 100 that are known of, and this is the shortest of them all. It's only 12 verses, and it is the most succinct outline of Om Mantra. So I thought we would go through this and take a look at the actual translation of the Upanishad itself. And there is our familiar circle chart with the A, the U, and the and the fourth. And then we'll come down here. And this we've already looked at, the symbol of the Om symbol that has this part being Vaishnavar, this being Tejata, this being Prajna, and the Bindu, the point, being Turiya, and this being the manifestation through Maya or Avidya of the coming outward process, or Shiva manifesting out as Shakti. In the 12 verses, the first two verses describe the self, the capital S self, or Atman, and the absolute reality. The next block of sutras, 3 through 7, or verses, explain the 4 levels of consciousness, and verses 8 to 12 outline the 4 aspects of Om. We're not going to go into great detail with this. We'll take a look at it and literally look. There's transliterated Sanskrit. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but here's a reliable English translation that comes from Swami Rama. And so this is verse 1 on the self and the absolute. Hari Om, the whole universe is the syllable Om. Following is the exposition of Om. Everything that was, is, or will be is, in truth, Om. All else which transcends time, space, and causation is also Om. Verse 2. All of this everywhere is in truth Brahman, the absolute reality. This very self itself, Atman, is also Brahman, the absolute reality. This Atman or self has 4 aspects through which it operates. And then the next block of verses talks about those 4 levels. So verse 3. The first aspect of Atman is the self in the waking state, Vaishvanara. In this first state, consciousness is turned outward to the external world. Through its 7 instruments and 19 channels, it experiences the gross objects of the phenomenal world. And down below, we will review those 7 instruments and 19 channels. The second aspect of Atman is the self in the dreaming state, Tejasa. In this second state, consciousness is turned towards the inner world. It also operates through 7 instruments and 19 channels which engage the subtle objects of the mental realm. And again, we'll talk about those 7 and 19, those 26 near the end here. The important thing to note here is that in the next verse in Prajna, those have all receded and they are not mentioned. The third aspect of Atman is the self operating in the deep sleep state, Prajna. In this third state, there is neither the desire for any gross or subtle object nor any dream sequences. In deep sleep, all such experiences have receded or merged into the ground of undifferentiated consciousness. Here one is filled with the experience of bliss and can also find the way to earlier knowledge of the 2 preceding states. Next, the one who experiences all of these states of consciousness is the omniscient, indwelling source and director of all. This one is the womb out of which all the other emerge. All things originate from and dissolve back into this source. Number 7. The fourth aspect of Atman or self is literally Turiya. The fourth aspect of Atman or self is Turiya, literally the fourth. In this fourth state, consciousness is neither turned outward nor inward, nor is it both outward and inward. It is beyond both cognition and the absence of cognition. This fourth state of Turiya cannot be experienced through the senses or known by comparison, deductive reasoning, or inference. It is indescribable, incomprehensible, and unthinkable with the mind. This is pure consciousness itself. This is the real self. It is within the cessation of all phenomena. It is serene, tranquil, filled with bliss, and is one without a second. This is the real or true self that is to be realized. And then this last section of verses is on the four aspects of the mantra Om, verses 8 to 12. That Om, though described as having four states, is indivisible. It is pure consciousness itself. That consciousness is Om mantra. The three sounds A-U-M, A-U-M, and the three letters A-U-M are identical with the three states of waking, dreaming, and sleeping, and these three states are identical with the three sounds and letters. The fourth state, Turiya, is to be realized only in the silence behind or beyond the other three. Verse 9. Vaishvanara is the consciousness experienced during the waking state and is A, or A, the first letter of Om mantra. That simple sound of A is first and permeates all the other sounds. One who is aware of this first level of reality has fulfillment of all longings and is successful. Verse 10. Tejasa is the consciousness experienced during the dreaming state and is U, or U, the second letter of Om mantra. This intermediate state operates between the waking and sleeping states, reflecting some qualities of the other two. One who knows this subtler state is superior to others, for one who knows this knowers of Brahman, the absolute reality, will be born into his family, which I think means will have the company of the wise. Prajna is the consciousness experienced during the state of dreamless deep sleep and is M, or the third level of Om mantra. It contains the other two and is that from which the other two emerge, and into which they recede or merge. A knower of this more subtle state can understand all within himself. Silence after Om. The fourth aspect is the soundless aspect of Om mantra. It is not utterable and is not comprehended through the senses or by the mind. With the cessation of all phenomena, even of bliss, this soundless aspect becomes known. It is a state of non-dual Advaita reality, one without a second. This fourth state, Turiya, is the real self or true self. One with direct experience of this expands to universal consciousness. And in the descriptions of Vaishvanara and Tejasa, 26 principles were mentioned. Here's a brief comment on those. And note again that they have receded and are not mentioned in the prajna level, the M level. The 7 instruments are the more macroscopic instruments, while the 19 channels relate more to the microscopic individual person. First, the 7 instruments. First, consciousness manifests outward as space, air, fire, water, and earth, along with the individuation from the whole and the flow of energy, which we know as the pulsing impulse towards breath, prana. The 19 channels. Then the individual operates through the 4 functions of mind, the aspects of antakarana, the inner instrument, which are manas, chitta, ahamkara, and buddhi. Those 4 operate through 5 pranas: prana, apana, samana, udana, and vyana vayus. The 5 active senses or indriyas, karmendriyas, of eliminating, procreating, moving, grasping, and speaking, and the 5 cognitive senses, jnanendriyas, of smelling, tasting, seeing, touching, and hearing. All of these 7 instruments and 19 channels are the means by which the self or Atman operates in the external world, which is Vaishvanara, the subject of this 3rd verse of the Mandukya Upanishad. It is extremely useful, if not essential, to understand and remember these 26 principles, instruments, or channels. This is not just intellectual information, but rather is a real key to the self-observation and self-awareness practices that lead to the transcendence of all of these and the realization of the self. If they are not conscientiously witnessed, one can be deprived of the depths of spiritual awakening. Keeping it simple, when reading about these 26 principles, the 7 instruments and 19 channels, it can seem very complicated. However, please keep in mind that the entire process of inner functioning is being mapped out in these principles. From that perspective, 26 is really not such a large number. By systematically learning about, exploring, witnessing, and transcending those few, you find yourself at the realization of the self, the Atman, which is the goal described in other verses of the Mandukya Upanishad. 5 elements. These 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space are literally examined during meditation and contemplation, as well as witnessed in daily life. The 5 elements operate in conjunction with the lower 5 chakras. At subtle levels, they are called tanmatras, which are part of tattvas, or subtle constituents. The 5 elements align with and operate from the 5 lower chakras, along with the 10 indriyas and a seed mantra for each. We won't talk about these individually, but there that is if you want to take a look at it. It's very useful practice. When the prana operates in the body, it divides into 5 major flows called vayus. These can be thought of as somewhat like major currents in one of the large oceans of the world, while there may be many thousands of smaller currents. These 5 vayus are the major currents that contain thousands of smaller currents. The 5 are literally witnessed and examined during meditation and contemplation. Pranavaya operates from the heart center and is an upward flowing energy having to do with the vitalizing forces. And remember, all of these 26 that we're going through are explored at the level of Vaishvanara and Tejasa, and they recede in Prajna and, of course, Turiya. Apanavayu operates from the base of the torso in the rectum area, is a downward flowing energy and has to do with eliminating or throwing off what is no longer needed. Samanavayu operates from the navel center, deals with digestion, and allows the mental discrimination between useful and not useful thoughts. Udanavayu operates from the throat and drives exhalation, operating in conjunction with Pranavayu, which deals with inhalation. Vyanavayu operates throughout the whole body, having no particular center, and is a coordinating energy throughout the various systems. The human being, the 10 senses or indriyas, the human being is like a building with 10 doors. 5 are entrance doors and 5 are exit doors. Witnessing these 10 senses is an important part of meditation, contemplation, and meditation in action. The 5 exit doors are the 5 means of expression, which are called karmendriyas. Karma means action, and indriyas are the means or senses. Jnanendriyas, the 5 entrance doors, are the 5 cognitive senses, which are called jnanendriyas. Jnana means knowing, indriyas are the means or senses. Briefly, the 4 functions of mind are manas, chitta, ahamkara, and buddhi. And these 4, to witness these 4 is a tremendous practice for advancing in meditation. Manas is what we commonly know as the sensory processing mind or sensory motor mind. Chitta is the storage of impressions. Ahamkara is the I maker or the ego. And buddhi knows, decides, judges, and discriminates. And there's another article there, but we won't go into detail on this, talking about those 4 functions of mind in greater detail. And once again, here we have our map, the very, very well-known symbol of Om. And so here's Vaishnavar, here's Tejasa, here's Prajna, and here's Turiya. And remember those 26 elements we just talked about operate in Vaishnavar, they operate in Tejasa, but they are not operating in Prajna. They have receded. And once again, here is Tripura. What we're seeking is the one that is dwelling in or lives in the 3 cities. City 1, City 2, City 3. The 3 cities. Okay? And so this is our review of these 26 principles. And this is the review of the Mandukya Upanishad. And this is the end of our journey together through this. I hope you please practice Om Mantra and explore within. I hope that you have enjoyed this journey together, okay? And please have wonderful meditations. I know this stuff can look very difficult initially and very philosophical, etc., but it actually really is, when you play with it, when you observe yourself, you come to see that it really is pretty straightforward once we practice with it, okay? So please enjoy this and have wonderful meditations and contemplations. And remember, Om is ultimately a summary of what it's all about. I like to playfully said, Om is where the action is, Om is what's happening. Or said in a more traditional way, Om Tat Sat. Om, that alone is reality. Bye-bye. Thank you again for visiting.